Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to our podcast. I am pleased to have our general and also our representative in the Croatian Parliament, General Željko Glasnović, with me at my podcast. And I'm pretty much sure that you will enjoy this podcast. This podcast deals with, let's call it the replacement of peoples, or rather the replacement of nations, and we are now experiencing this on a global level. So thank you again for joining us, General Glasnović. I would be very pleased if you could first and foremost explain those two tricky terms, migrants and refugees. We see those words being tossed around in the New York Times, in the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, in different journals, including the journals in Croatia, like izbjeglice or refugees, whatever. Could you please clarify those two issues, because they are not the same, that these are not two synonyms?
Well, thank you, Professor, and my sincere greetings to our viewers. Yeah, it's a question that we get lost sometimes in the midst of disinformation and information overload. But on a recent fact-finding mission to Syria and Lebanon, we saw that we have at least the population of Lebanon, at least half of the population of Lebanon are refugees. Syrian.
How much is it in terms of?
Well, say 2 million.
2 million, right?
Palestinian and Syrian. We also have refugees from Syria escaping from war-ravaged territories in Syria, in Turkey, which is an enormous.
Now, how would you qualify those people? We're talking about millions of here. Are they refugees?
They
a blunt question. Or are they migrants? Who are they?
They are refugees. Migrants. We have economic migrants who are fleeing from countries.
All right. Can you be a little bit specific?
Well, we
have
migrants from Afghanistan,
okay,
the Middle East. We have migrants also from Syria who are of military age, who have stayed there.
Draft dodgers, right?
Draft dodgers to defend their country, which is endangered from 3 or 4 sides. Externally, internally, Afghanistan. I mentioned Afghanistan, which is also in danger of it's under attack almost daily from Taliban terrorism, and the nightmare of the West is the Taliban and other Islamic terrorists with nuclear, biological, chemical weapons. This is the nightmare of the West. So they're basically economic refugees. Many arrive in Western Europe with no papers, no identity. Some are perhaps sleeper cells. We have a case of Bosnia-Herzegovina where, for example, no visa is needed for members of or citizens of Islamic states who fly into.
Yes, could you explain it for our foreign viewers, for our English-speaking viewers? What exactly? I mean, I understand, judging what you said, that people like, let's say, that would be refugees or migrants, call them whichever way you like, they can just land in Sarajevo without having that passport stamped.
Not true. Citizens of Islamic countries do not need a visa to fly into Sarajevo.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we have statistics who flow in, who flow out, and how many remain. There's a possible danger there. Not only that, the entire demographic picture in Bosnia, not just Bosnia, but the Middle East, is being changed during the last 10, 20 years.
How does it look? I'm sorry for interrupting. How does it look in Bosnia and Herzegovina? There is a majority Muslim population, about 2 million of them. And is there already some impact in terms of refugees from Islamic countries? And to what extent those official Islamic countries, like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, are playing their role in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Yeah, not so much refugees from other countries. They don't go there. Nobody goes to Bosnia and Herzegovina as a refugee. They go to Western countries. They basically migrate to the West because they see Western European countries, Sweden, Germany, and so on, as a nirvana for
as a cow, as a golden cow. Right?
True enough, but we have Islamic influence, like say the Gulf states, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, where property is being brought up. The territorial picture is changing within the federation, which is composed of the Croatian and Bosnian component. People, Serbs also are selling their land at exorbitant prices. So you have no land.
Selling to who?
To people, arrivals from Islamic countries.
Really? Could you explain that a little bit, because many of our viewers have no idea what's really going on?
Well, the Islamic countries, first of all...
So you're not talking now about refugees, or we're talking about rich investors, or call them whichever.
True enough.
People who are just buying...
The financial climate is changing. Also, the ethnic structure is changing, because wars are fought, first of all, are for territory. This picture is changing. So we also have cultural changes in society that are present. Christian communities are disappearing in the Middle East. Copts, Assyrian Christians, Maronite Christians. This is also a tragedy, because these people have been there for centuries. This is underreported in the West, and this is a tragedy also.
Of course, the situation looks pretty grim in Syria and elsewhere. But what about Bosnia and Herzegovina? The reason I'm asking this question, you spend so much time, but you probably know best. Of all politicians in Croatia, you probably know the spirit and the ethnic structure of Bosnia and Herzegovina best. And what I'm particularly interested in, I'm sure our viewers are interested in, what exactly now is going on, first, in terms of migrants, from Algeria, Afghanistan, you name it, Somalia. There are quite a few of them now in northern Bosnia and Herzegovina, right next to us, like right next to Croatia. And then in terms of those quote-unquote investors coming from Saudi Arabia and elsewhere and buying off a huge land and property in Bosnia proper. Could you explain that a little bit, those two issues?
Well, Croatians in Bosnia saved Bosnia and Herzegovina. Without them, there would be no federation. De facto, there would be no Croatia, because the crucible of the war was a single battlefield, not just Croatia, Bosnia, but it was a single battlefield. They in 92, the referendum, Croatians came out en masse and voted for an independent Bosnia and Herzegovina. Also, they saved Bosnia during the war against Serb aggression.
You talk about the Croatian HVO, right?
HVO and Croatian forces.
Croatian forces. Yeah, you were in command of Croatian forces.
With the signing of the Dayton Agreement, Croatian forces held 51% of the present territory of the Federation. And the war there was for Croatians, was a fight for biological survival, as it is today. Today they are under danger from different
we're just slightly moving from the topic. So basically what you're saying is that the Croatian military forces saved the integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Right?
True enough. And also secure the borders of present-day Croatia.
All right. Now what happens now? Okay, so this was 20 years ago, with all due respect, but now we have a big problem, and I would like to have your clear answer to it. Now we are dealing here with non-European migrants, mostly coming from Northern Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, and of course from Afghanistan, from Eastern Asia, and so on. I'm wondering to what extent the Croatian population proper and the Serbian population, for that matter, how do they cope with this issue? And to what extent this is going to have a security impact on Croatia proper? I know we don't have much time, we'll cover that in our future podcast, but please try to summarize that in a couple of sentences.
Well, Croatians there are under threat they're victims of political engineering. They're caught between two diverging political cultures, political concepts. One is greater Serbian imperialism. We have a mini-state within Bosnia and Herzegovina. Also, Bosniak Muslim Unitarianism. Bosniaks in Bosnia, they primarily look towards the Bosphorus, to Turkey as a mentor.
Also, let me just recap it, just for a matter of clarity. So you're suggesting, you're in fact saying that, and I'm sure you have some empirical data on it, that Bosnian Muslims, regardless of how they can declare themselves, either Bosnians or Bošnjaci or whatever, they look for some legitimacy first and foremost in Istanbul, right, or in Ankara, for that matter. Is that correct?
True enough. This is a historical matter, because the Ottoman Empire was there for centuries.
So they consider that, should I say, somewhat derogatorily, are they Turks by default or what?
Well, that perhaps is a good description.
What about Croats then?
Well, Croats they're the oldest ethnic group in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They've been marginalized. In the recent election, we had a turncoat by the name of Komšić.
Yes.
voted
We'll definitely talk about this. But
as the new president, he was voted in, but it's purely political engineering because the international community there. Let's face it. Bosnia is basically a protectorate of the international community.
Okay.
And billions of dollars have been siphoned into Bosnia to create a functional state, which it is not. It is basically a black hole between the Schengen border and the southern wing of NATO, where you have neither legal, financial, or economic security. That's why people are leaving. And it will remain so unless we have political stability.
Let me just summarize, General Glasnović, and I will try to elicit a short answer to this short summary of mine. So, as I understand, the Croats have a threefold problem. First and foremost, there's of course a visible tension between the Bosnian Muslims. And then, of course, there's another problem, another factor, which is, of course, the incoming migrants from different non-European countries. And third, of course, there is also the Serbian entity, is known as Republika Srpska. Very short, and we'll definitely, dear viewers, we'll come to that topic next time, and we'll talk about this much more explicitly, and then we'll have many more podcasts on it. But now, for now, General Glasnović, can you tell us how can Croatian community survive those three, should I put it, challenges, or those three factors that I've just enumerated? Real briefly.
Well, we have to have a unified strategy within the international community, which I think is ill-informed. They've allowed this political engineering to carry on. The minorization of the Croatian entity, which is obvious, what they said is from the last elections. Croatia must also, we have an agreement between Croatia and in the constitution that to defend Croatians outside of the borders of the Croatian minority. Also, we must think economically. We must fund more for people to remain. We must have Croatian businesses must be funded. Croatia has a trade surplus with Croatians in Bosnia and Herzegovina in the hundreds of millions of euros. Plus, also we have a border that's over 1,000 kilometers long. This is a strategic question for Croatia itself. So we must have an economic, diplomatic, and international also approach to the problem.
We'll come to that topic, and thank you very much, General Glasnović. I'm glad that you have elucidated a couple of issues that are completely unknown, not just among Croats in the Croatian diaspora, but also among many foreign diplomats. And I'm very thankful for your being here. And thanks again, dear viewers. Please stay tuned and listen to us next time with more podcasts with the General Glasnović. Thank you very much.